The pool water cascaded down the drain like liquid silver, 3 feet deep and dropping fast. Sarah watched from her kitchen window, coffee growing cold in her hands, when she saw the girl, blonde hair flying, arms windmilling, leap over the fence. The splash echoed like a gunshot. When the girl surfaced, gasping and screaming, Sarah's blood turned to ice. Because Karen Morrison was already dialing 911, her voice cutting through the morning air like a blade, "My daughter could have died. Because of your negligence." But what Karen didn't know, what nobody knew, was that this wasn't an accident. And by tomorrow, the entire neighborhood would discover that some secrets are worth drowning for. Sarah Martinez pressed her forehead against the cool kitchen window, watching the last stubborn patches of algae swirl toward the pool drain. 3 years of bitter neighborhood warfare had led to this moment, finally emptying the cursed thing. That had become the epicenter of every property dispute on Maple Street. "Thank God," she whispered, steam from her coffee mug fogging the glass. After months of Karen Morrison's complaints about unsafe water levels and attractive nuisances, Sarah had decided to drain the pool entirely. Let Karen find something else to weaponize in her endless crusade to make Sarah's life miserable. The morning sun cast dancing reflections across the remaining water, maybe 3 feet deep now, down from the original 8. Sarah had started the process at dawn, wanting to avoid any confrontation with her next-door neighbor. Karen had an uncanny ability to appear whenever Sarah so much as stepped onto her own back patio. A movement caught her eye. Sarah's stomach dropped. 15-year-old Madison Morrison was balanced precariously on the wooden fence separating their properties, her long blonde hair whipping in the morning breeze. She wore a bright pink bikini and had that reckless gleam in her eye that Sarah had learned to fear over the past 3 years. "Madison, no." Sarah shouted through the glass, but it was too late. The girl launched herself forward with the confidence of someone who had made this jump 100 times before, except every other time, the pool had been full. Time fractured into slow motion. Madison's body arced through the air, arms extended. A perfect dive form that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Sarah's coffee mug shattered against the kitchen floor as she lunged for the back door. The impact was sickening, not the clean splash of a dive, but the harsh slap of human flesh meeting shallow water and concrete. Madison's scream cut through the morning air like broken glass. Sarah burst through her sliding door, her bare feet slipping on the wet deck as she raced toward the pool. Madison was thrashing in the shallow water, her face contorted in pain and shock. "I can't feel my legs." Madison sobbed, her voice high and panicked. "I can't feel my legs." "Don't move," Sarah commanded, her EMT training from 20 years ago flooding back. "Madison, listen to me. Don't try to stand. Just breathe." Sarah slid into the pool, the cold water shocking her system as she reached for her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unlock the screen. 911, what's your emergency? "I need an ambulance at 847 Maple Street. A teenager dove into a shallow pool. Possible spinal injury. She's conscious but can't feel her legs." Madison's tears mixed with the chlorinated water as Sarah positioned herself carefully, trying to stabilize the girl's neck without moving her spine. "You're going to be okay," Sarah whispered, though her voice betrayed her terror. "Help is coming." That's when she heard the back door of the Morrison house slam open like a gunshot. "Madison." Karen Morrison's voice carried the primal fear of every parent's worst nightmare. She appeared at the fence line, her perfectly styled hair disheveled, still in her silk pajamas. Her eyes took in the scene, her daughter in the shallow water, Sarah kneeling beside her, and something dark and terrible passed across her features. "What did you do?" Karen screamed, vaulting over the fence with surprising agility. "What did you do to my daughter?" "Karen," she jumped in, "you were draining the pool." Karen's voice cracked with hysteria. "You knew she swims here every morning. You knew." Sarah felt ice in her veins. "She doesn't swim here every morning. This is my property, liar." Karen was in the pool now, trying to reach Madison, but Sarah blocked her path. "Don't move her," Sarah said firmly. "We have to wait for the paramedics." Karen's eyes blazed with a fury Sarah had never seen before, not even during their worst property line disputes. "You did this on purpose," she whispered, her voice deadly quiet. "You drained this pool knowing Madison would jump in. You tried to kill my daughter." The accusation hit Sarah like a physical blow. That's insane, Karen. Why would I? Because you hate us. Karen's scream echoed off the houses. You've hated us since the day we moved in. The noise complaints, the property surveys, the homeowner association meetings. This is your revenge. Sarah stared at her neighbor in horror. 3 years of escalating conflicts suddenly took on a sinister new dimension in Karen's mind. Every bitter argument, every petty dispute, every moment of suburban warfare was being weaponized into something monstrous. The sound of sirens grew louder, but not fast enough. Mom. Madison's voice was small and frightened. Mom, I still can't feel anything below my waist. Karen's face crumpled, but when she looked at Sarah again, the hatred had crystallized into something harder than diamond. You're going to pay for this, she said quietly. I'm going to destroy you. The paramedics arrived in a blur of uniforms and equipment. Sarah stepped back as they took over Madison's care, professional voices calling out medical terms that made her stomach churn. Spinal board, cervical collar, possible compression fracture. As they carefully extracted Madison from the pool, Karen climbed out and immediately cornered the lead paramedic. This woman drained her pool without warning anyone, Karen said, her voice steady now, calculated. My daughter has been swimming in that pool every morning for 3 years with permission. Sarah Martinez deliberately created a death trap. Sarah felt the world tilting. That's not true. The paramedic interrupted. We need to focus on getting your daughter to the hospital. You can sort out the details later. But Karen wasn't done. As the ambulance pulled away with Madison inside, she turned to Sarah. With cold, predatory eyes. I called my lawyer before I even came outside, Karen said quietly. I know exactly what you did and why you did it. By this time tomorrow, everyone in this neighborhood will know that you're a psychopath who tried to murder a 15-year-old girl. Sarah watched her neighbor walk back to her house, already pulling out her phone, probably to make more calls. The morning sun felt suddenly cold against her wet clothes. She looked at her empty pool, at the drain that had seemed like such a simple solution an hour ago, and realized that Karen Morrison was about to turn her entire life upside down. What Sarah didn't know was that 2 houses down, elderly Mr. Peterson had been watching the whole thing unfold from his second-story window. And what he had seen was going to change everything. Because Madison Morrison hadn't jumped into that pool by accident. Ice crackled through the speaker as Sarah sat on her couch, still in her damp clothes, staring at the empty pool through her sliding door. Karen Morrison is telling everyone I tried to kill her daughter. That's ridiculous. You saved that girl's life. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the morning pressing down on her chest. Try explaining that to the police detective who just left. The detective, Rodriguez, young and serious, had spent 2 hours taking Sarah's statement, measuring the pool depth, photographing everything. His questions had grown increasingly pointed as the interview progressed. Had there been recent conflicts with the Morrison family? Why drain the pool without posting warning signs? Was she aware that Madison frequently used the pool? That last question had stopped Sarah cold. Because the truth was, she had seen Madison in her yard before, always assumed the girl was just retrieving balls that went over the fence or cutting through to get to the park faster. She'd never confronted her about it directly. I need to go, Sarah told Carmen. Channel 7 just pulled up. Through her front window, Sarah watched reporter Jessica Chen adjust her blazer while her cameraman set up equipment on the sidewalk. Behind them, neighbors were clustering in small groups, whispering and pointing at Sarah's house. Her doorbell rang. Sarah ignored it. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, saw the news. You're getting what you deserve. A concerned neighbor, then another, child abuser. You should be in jail. And another, hope you can sleep at night knowing what you did. Sarah's hands were shaking as she turned off her phone. Through the blinds, she could see more news vans arriving. Karen Morrison emerged from her house, dressed in a conservative black dress, her eyes red-rimmed but her posture perfect for the cameras. Sarah watched in horror as her neighbor transformed into the perfect victim. My daughter Madison is fighting for her life because of one woman's hatred, Karen told Jessica Chen, her voice breaking at exactly the right moments. Sarah Martinez has terrorized our family for 3 years. She's filed noise complaints when my children played in our backyard. She's called the city about our fence height, our tree branches, even the color of our mailbox. And yesterday she found the perfect way to get her revenge. That's a serious accusation, Jessica Chen said. What evidence do you have that Ms. Martinez deliberately? Madison has been swimming in that pool every morning for 3 years, Karen interrupted, tears streaming down her face. Sarah knew this. Everyone in the neighborhood knew this. Madison would wave to Sarah through her kitchen window. Sarah would wave back. They had an understanding. Sarah felt sick. The waving, she remembered it now. Madison would splash around in the pool at dawn, and sometimes she would wave at Sarah's kitchen window. Sarah had always waved back, thinking it was just neighborly politeness. She'd never thought of it as permission. So when Sarah decided to drain her pool in the middle of the night, Karen continued, without warning anyone, without posting signs. She created a death trap for a 15-year-old girl who trusted her. The reporter nodded sympathetically. How is Madison doing now? Karen's composure cracked completely. The doctors don't know if she'll ever walk again. My baby girl is in the ICU with a compressed vertebra and spinal swelling. She's 15 years old. She's a dancer. She was going to audition for Juilliard next year. Sarah had to turn away from the window. The image Karen was painting of a calculating woman who had deliberately set a trap for an innocent child was so convincing that even Sarah was starting to doubt herself. Had she known, on some level, that Madison used the pool? Had her decision to drain it been motivated by something darker than she'd admitted to herself? The doorbell rang again, followed by aggressive knocking. Ms. Martinez. This is Jessica Chen with Channel 7. We'd like to give you a chance to tell your side of the story. Sarah pressed her back against the door, feeling like a prisoner in her own home. Her phone, which she'd turned back on to check for updates from the hospital, immediately buzzed with notifications. Facebook tags, Twitter mentions, text messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Someone had created a Facebook group called Justice for Madison Morrison that already had 300 members. The worst part was the photos. Someone had posted pictures of Madison from her Instagram, the girl dancing, laughing, posing in her pink bikini by various pools. Beautiful, young, full of life. The captions were brutal. This angel may never walk again because of Sarah Martinez's hatred. A promising young dancer destroyed by a bitter woman's revenge. Sarah Martinez is a danger to our children. Sarah scrolled through the comments, each one like a knife to her chest. People were calling for her arrest, her job, her removal from the neighborhood. Someone had already figured out where she worked and was calling for a boycott of the accounting firm. Then she saw a comment that made her blood freeze. My daughter goes to school with Madison. Madison told her friends she was going to get back at the crazy lady next door for being mean to her mom. Maybe this whole thing was planned. Sarah screenshot the comment immediately, but when she refreshed the page, it was gone. Deleted. Her doorbell rang a third time. This time, a man's voice called through the door. Ms. Martinez, this is Tom Morrison, Madison's father. I think we need to talk. Sarah had barely seen Tom Morrison in 3 years of neighborhood warfare. He traveled constantly for work, leaving Karen to handle all the domestic battles. Sarah opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock engaged. Tom Morrison looked exhausted, his usually perfect businessman appearance rumpled and strained. But his eyes held a sadness that seemed genuine. I'm not here to fight with you, he said quietly. I know this looks bad. I know Karen is passionate about her grievances. But my daughter is lying in a hospital bed, and I need to understand what really happened. Sarah studied his face, trying to read his intentions. Your wife thinks I tried to murder your daughter. My wife thinks a lot of things. Tom rubbed his face with both hands. Look, can I come in? Just for 5 minutes. The reporters are circling like vultures and I can't think straight. Against her better judgment, Sarah unlatched the chain. Tom stepped inside and immediately moved to the sliding door, looking out at the empty pool. You really were just draining it for maintenance? Yes. I've been planning it for weeks. I have the work order from the pool company if you want to see it. Karen says Madison had permission to use your pool. Sarah chose her words carefully. Madison waved at me sometimes when she was swimming. I waved back. I thought I was being polite. I never gave explicit permission for her to use my pool, and I certainly never gave her permission to jump my fence whenever she felt like it. Tom nodded slowly. That sounds like Madison. She's always been impulsive. Karen encourages it. Calls it being assertive. Your daughter could have been killed, Sarah said quietly. Oh no. Tom's voice broke slightly. The doctors say she has a 50-50 chance of regaining full mobility. Even in the best-case scenario, she'll need months of physical therapy. They stood in silence, both looking out at the pool that had become the center of a neighborhood war. There's something else, Tom said finally. Something Karen doesn't know. Madison's been having problems at school. Acting out, getting into fights, skipping classes. Her grades have been slipping. The counselor thinks she's been struggling with our domestic situation. Sarah frowned. What domestic situation? Tom was quiet for a long moment. Karen and I are getting divorced. We've been trying to keep it quiet until after the school year, but Madison figured it out. She's been angry about it. Angry at me for leaving, angry at Karen for driving me away with her constant conflicts and drama. The pieces started clicking into place in Sarah's mind. You think Madison jumped into my pool on purpose? I think Madison has been acting out in increasingly dangerous ways, and this morning, she made a catastrophic mistake. Tom met Sarah's eyes. But I also think my wife is so consumed with blaming everyone else for our problems that she can't see what's really happening to our daughter. Sarah felt a chill of possibility. Tom, there's something I need to tell you. Someone posted a comment online, then deleted it. They said Madison told friends she was planning to get back at the crazy lady next door. Tom went very still. What? I screenshot it, but show me. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed him the screenshot. Tom stared at it for a long time, his face growing pale. Jesus Christ, he whispered. She planned this. She jumped into your pool knowing it was shallow, thinking she'd just get hurt enough to cause you legal trouble. She didn't realize that she could actually be paralyzed, Sarah finished. Tom sank onto her couch, his head in his hands. My daughter tried to frame you for attempted murder, and instead she may have destroyed her own life. Outside, Sarah could hear Karen's voice rising as she gave another interview, painting Sarah as a monster who had deliberately tried to harm a child. Neither of them knew that Mr. Peterson had been recording everything from his bedroom window since dawn, and that his footage was about to reveal a truth that would shatter the Morrison family forever. Chat control Sonnet 4. Harold Peterson had been awake since 4:30 a.m., the same time he'd risen every day for the past 40 years. At 78, his body didn't need much sleep, but his mind needed the quiet hours before the neighborhood came alive. He'd been sitting at his bedroom window with his morning coffee and his new digital camera, a Christmas gift from his daughter that he was still learning to use, when Sarah Martinez started draining her pool. Harold had always been fond of Sarah. Unlike some of the younger residents, she actually waved when she saw him in his garden. The Morrison family was a different story entirely. Harold had watched 3 years of escalating warfare between the two houses with the weary resignation of someone who'd seen too many neighborhood feuds destroy good people. But this morning had been different. This morning, he'd witnessed something that made his blood run cold. Now, 12 hours later, Harold sat in his living room watching the evening news, his camera in his lap, the memory card burning a hole in his conscience. The community is rallying around 15-year-old Madison Morrison, the anchor was saying, as calls grow for charges to be filed against her neighbor, Sarah Martinez. The screen showed footage of a candlelight vigil outside the Morrison house. Dozens of neighbors held signs reading "Justice for Madison" and to lock her up. Karen Morrison stood at the center, graciously accepting flowers and condolences, her performance pitch perfect. Harold's arthritic fingers tightened around his camera. The doorbell rang. Harold muted the television and shuffled to the front door, peering through the peephole. Tom Morrison stood on his porch, looking haggard and desperate. Harold opened the door. Tom. Mr. Peterson, I'm sorry to bother you so late. I know you usually turn in early, but I need to ask you something. Harold had known Tom since the family moved in 3 years ago. Before Karen's crusades had consumed their household, Tom had been a decent neighbor who helped Harold with his groceries and shoveled his walkway in winter. Come in, son. Tom entered the modest living room, his eyes immediately drawn to the muted television screen showing footage of his wife addressing the growing crowd outside their house. She's been at this for 12 hours straight, Tom said quietly. The interviews, the social media posts, organizing the neighborhood. She's turned Sarah Martinez into public enemy number 1. Harold studied the younger man's face. You don't think Sarah did this deliberately? No, I don't. And I think Madison. Tom stopped, running his hands through his hair. Mr. Peterson, my daughter has been acting out. She's angry about the divorce, angry about the constant fighting. I think she may have done something incredibly stupid this morning. Harold set his camera on the coffee table. What kind of stupid? I think she jumped into that pool knowing it was shallow. I think she was trying to get Sarah in trouble, maybe get her arrested for negligence or something. But she didn't realize how badly she could get hurt. Harold was quiet for a long moment. Outside, he could hear the sound of cars pulling up, more people arriving for Karen's impromptu rally. Tom, Harold said finally, how well do you know your daughter? The question seemed to catch Tom off guard. What do you mean? I mean, do you really know who Madison is when she's not performing for you and Karen? Tom frowned. I don't understand. Harold picked up his camera, scrolled through the digital display, and found the footage he'd been wrestling with all day. I've been recording birds from my bedroom window. New hobby. This camera has a zoom function that's quite impressive. He handed the camera to Tom. Press play. Tom looked at the small screen, and Harold watched his face change as the footage began. The timestamp showed 5:47 a.m. The camera was focused on Sarah's backyard, where the pool was visibly draining. Sarah was nowhere to be seen, she was inside, making coffee. Then Madison appeared in the frame. But she wasn't running or moving with the reckless abandon of an impulsive teenager. She was moving carefully, deliberately. She climbed onto the fence and sat there for several minutes, studying the pool, gauging the water level. Jesus, Tom whispered. On the small screen, Madison pulled out her phone and appeared to be recording herself. She spoke to the camera for nearly a minute, though there was no audio on Harold's footage. Then she put the phone away, positioned herself on the fence, and jumped. But it wasn't a dive. It wasn't the graceful arc Harold had expected from a girl who claimed to swim in that pool every morning. Madison jumped feet first, like someone who was trying to make a splash, trying to make noise, trying to get attention. She just hadn't counted on hitting the bottom so hard. She staged it, Tom breathed. She actually staged her own accident. There's more, Harold said gently. He fast-forwarded to just after the ambulance left. Karen was in her backyard, pacing and making phone calls. Madison's phone was still lying by the pool where it had fallen when the paramedics moved her. Karen picked up the phone, looked at it, and her face went white. She quickly deleted something from the screen, then pocketed the phone. She found Madison's recording, Harold said. And she deleted it. Tom stared at the camera in horror. My wife knows. She knows Madison staged this, and she's still trying to destroy Sarah's life. I've been sitting here all day trying to decide what to do with this footage, Harold said. I don't want to hurt your family, Tom. But I can't let an innocent woman be destroyed either. Outside, the crowd was getting larger and louder. Someone had brought a bullhorn and was leading chants of justice for Madison. Tom was still staring at the camera screen, watching his daughter's calculated performance over and over. How long has she been like this? How long has Madison been? He couldn't finish the sentence. Manipulative. Harold supplied gently. Tom, I've been watching your family for 3 years. Madison learned how to weaponize victimhood by watching her mother. Every conflict Karen started with Sarah, every dramatic scene, every time she positioned herself as the wrong party, Madison was taking notes. Tom closed his eyes. The divorce. She's been trying to manipulate me into staying by making Karen look like the victim of everyone else's cruelty. The problems at school, the acting out, it was all designed to make me feel guilty for leaving. And when that didn't work, Harold said quietly, she escalated. Tom looked at the camera again, his face drawn with exhaustion and grief. She was going to let Sarah go to prison. My daughter was going to send an innocent woman to prison to punish me for divorcing her mother. The sound of the crowd outside was growing more aggressive. Someone was shouting about how people like Sarah Martinez didn't belong in their neighborhood. I have to stop this, Tom said, standing up. Tom, wait. Harold touched his arm. If you go out there right now and tell them what really happened, you'll destroy Madison's life. The whole world will know that a 15-year-old girl staged her own near paralysis for attention and revenge. That's not something she can come back from. But I can't let Sarah, give me until tomorrow morning, Harold said. Let me figure out a way to help Sarah without completely destroying your daughter's future. Madison made a terrible mistake. But she's still a child. There has to be a way to fix this without ruining 2 lives instead of 1. Tom looked torn. Outside, the chanting was getting louder, more menacing. Promise me, Harold said. One night. Let me find a solution that doesn't destroy everyone involved. Tom nodded reluctantly. One night. But if you can't find another way, I'm going public with this footage. I won't let my family destroy an innocent woman, even if it means losing my daughter forever. After Tom left, Harold sat alone with his camera, watching Madison's calculated performance over and over again. The girl had planned everything perfectly, except for the one variable she couldn't control, the severity of her own injuries. As Harold finally turned off the camera and prepared for bed, he had no idea that Madison Morrison was lying awake in her hospital bed, perfectly aware that her plan had gone horribly wrong and that she was about to make one final, desperate move. To save herself, even if it meant destroying everyone else in the process. Chat Control Sonnet 4. Madison Morrison had been pretending to be asleep for 3 hours. The neurologist had left at 9 p.m. with cautiously optimistic news. The swelling in her spine was reducing, and there was a good chance she would regain full mobility with extensive physical therapy. But Madison barely heard the medical details. Her mind was consumed with damage control. Through her closed eyelids, she could hear her mother in the hallway, giving yet another phone interview to some reporter. Karen's voice carried that performative grief she'd perfected over the years, the same tone she used when complaining to store managers or city council members. My daughter is showing signs of improvement, thank God, Karen was saying. But the trauma she's endured, the betrayal by someone she trusted, that may never heal. Sarah Martinez didn't just try to hurt Madison's body. She tried to break her spirit. Madison wanted to scream. Her phone, retrieved from the pool and now dried out, sat on the bedside table. Madison knew her mother had gone through it, had seen the video she'd recorded that morning. The video that proved everything Karen was saying was a lie. But Karen had deleted it, just like she deleted anything that didn't fit her narrative. Madison had learned manipulation from a master, but she'd underestimated the physical reality of her scheme. What was supposed to be a minor injury that would get Sarah Martinez arrested for negligence had nearly cost Madison her ability to walk. Her mother's campaign for justice had spiraled far beyond anything Madison had intended. And now, listening to the crowds outside chanting for Sarah's arrest, Madison realized she'd created a monster she couldn't control. The door opened quietly. Madison kept her breathing steady, feigning sleep, as her father's familiar footsteps approached her bed. I know you're awake, Madison. Tom Morrison's voice was different, tired, broken in a way Madison had never heard before. She opened her eyes reluctantly. Her father looked like he'd aged 10 years since morning. His usually perfect appearance was disheveled, his tie loosened, his shirt wrinkled. But it was his eyes that frightened her, they held a sadness and knowledge that made Madison's stomach clench. Dad, I don't. Tom held up a hand. Before you say anything, I need you to know that I've seen the footage, Madison. I know what you did. Madison's blood turned to ice. What footage? Mr. Peterson was filming birds from his window this morning. His camera caught everything. You sitting on the fence, calculating the jump. You recording yourself on your phone. Before you jumped. All of it. Madison tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in her back. Dad, I can explain, can you? Tom's voice was deadly quiet. Can you explain why you deliberately jumped into a shallow pool to frame an innocent woman for attempted murder? Can you explain why you let your mother destroy a neighbor's life? For something you planned. Tears started flowing down Madison's face, but for the first time in years, they were genuine. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I just wanted to scare her, make her back off from fighting with Mom all the time. I thought I'd just get bruised up, maybe a broken arm. I didn't know I could get paralyzed. So your plan was to commit fraud and send Sarah to prison for a crime she didn't commit, but it's okay because you only meant to hurt yourself a little bit. Madison had never heard her father speak to her with such cold disappointment. Throughout her parents' deteriorating marriage, Tom had always been her ally, the one who understood her better than Karen's theatrical dramatics. You don't understand, Madison sobbed. You're leaving us. You're getting divorced and abandoning Mom and me, and I knew if something big happened, if we needed you, you'd have to stay. You'd have to be a family again. Tom closed his eyes as if her words caused him physical pain. Madison, your mother and I are getting divorced because we can't stop hurting each other. Every conversation becomes a fight. Every disagreement becomes a war. I'm leaving to save what's left of our family, not to destroy it. But if Sarah Martinez wasn't there, if Mom didn't have anyone to fight with, your mother would find someone else. Tom sat down heavily in the visitor's chair. Madison, your mother needs conflict. She feeds on drama and victimhood. If it wasn't Sarah Martinez, it would be someone else. The HOA president, your teachers, the mailman, anyone who doesn't give her exactly what she wants becomes an enemy. Madison stared at her father, seeing him clearly for the first time in months. He wasn't leaving because he didn't love them. He was leaving because living with Karen Morrison had become toxic, and he was trying to save himself. Does Mom know? Madison whispered. About the footage. Mr. Peterson showed it to me. He's trying to decide what to do with it. Tom leaned forward. Madison, there are 200 people outside our house right now calling for Sarah Martinez to be arrested. Your mother has turned this into a social media crusade. Sarah can't leave her house without being harassed. Someone threw a brick through her front window 2 hours ago. Madison felt sick. I never wanted that. I just wanted, you wanted to manipulate me into staying with your mother by destroying an innocent woman's life. Tom's voice was flat, emotionless. And when your plan went wrong, when you got hurt worse than you intended, you decided to let Sarah take the blame rather than admit what you'd done. I was scared, Madison whispered. Once Mom started the whole campaign, I couldn't figure out how to stop it without everyone finding out I was lying. Tom was quiet for a long moment, staring out the hospital window at the distant lights of the neighborhood where his family was falling apart in real time. There's something else you need to know, he said finally. The doctors say you're going to recover fully. You'll need months of physical therapy, but you'll dance again. You'll walk normally. Your mother doesn't know yet, she's too busy with her media blitz to talk to the doctors. Madison felt a surge of relief, followed immediately by terror. If she was going to recover completely, the sympathy she was garnering would evaporate. The narrative of the promising young dancer destroyed by a bitter neighbor would collapse. Madison, you have one chance to fix this, Tom said quietly. One opportunity to tell the truth before Mr. Peterson decides to release that footage publicly. If you come forward now, admit what you did, there might be a way to stop this without completely destroying your future. But everyone will hate me, Madison whispered. The whole neighborhood, the kids at school, everyone online, they all know I'm a liar. And if you don't come forward, Tom said, Sarah Martinez might go to prison for a crime you committed against yourself. She might lose her job, her home, her entire life because you wanted to play games with your parents' marriage. Madison stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of her choices crushing down on her. Every possible path forward seemed to lead to her own destruction. What if I said Sarah did know I used the pool? Madison asked quietly. What if I said she drained it on purpose, but I don't want to press charges because I forgive her? Tom's face went white with disgust. You're still trying to manipulate this. Even now, even after everything that's happened, you're looking for a way to avoid taking responsibility for your actions. I'm 15 years old. Madison shouted, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through her spine. I made a mistake. Why should my whole life be ruined because of one stupid mistake? Because your mistake was deliberately trying to send an innocent woman to prison, Tom said, standing up. Because your mistake has turned our neighbors into a lynch mob. Because your mistake has shown me that my daughter is capable of calculating cruelty that makes her mother's petty feuds look like child's play. He moved toward the door, then stopped. You have until morning, Madison. Either you find the courage to tell the truth, or Mr. Peterson will do it for you. And when that happens, the whole world will know not just what you did, but that you had the chance to come clean and chose to keep lying instead. After her father left, Madison lay alone in the dark hospital room, listening to the distant sound of chanting from the crowd outside her house. She could hear her mother's voice on the phone in the hallway, scheduling more interviews, planning more rallies, building the campaign that would destroy Sarah Martinez. Madison realized she had created a machine of destruction that had grown far beyond her control. The question now was whether she had the strength to throw herself into its gears to stop it. Because at 6 a.m., Harold Peterson was planning to take his footage to the police and